Today we're looking at classifications of contracts. There are different classifications of contract depending on uses, purposes, and all of that. So we're going to look at classification by form, and that is where we'll have the simple contract and the formal contract. We'll have formal on one side, simple or informal on the other side. Let's go through to the formal contract. Usually, contracts need not be in a certain form. In fact, prior to now, contracts can be oral, can be written. However, as time progressed, we found out that there was a need to specify the form of certain contracts. And so we have the formal contracts, which are contracts under seal or contracts by deed, and then we'll have the simple contract, which or informal contract, depending on some books. The simple contracts are those contracts that are not under seal at all; they are in writing or oral. They are either in writing or oral, but they are not under seal. Those are the simple contracts. So formal contracts or contracts by deed or contracts under seal are those contracts that must be in writing and then signed by parties, usually has to be sealed, and then should be delivered as well. So we're going to look at the terms that concern a formal contract. But firstly, we're going to go into the fact that a contract by deed is important usually and can be enforced by law even in the absence of consideration. That is, and that's why it's the best when you are giving a gift of land or gift of a thing to someone, you use a deed because there need not be consideration for the law to enforce a contract by deed, unlike the simple contract. So a contract by deed or a formal contract can be enforced without consideration or even agreement. Parties need not sit down and agree and be in one mind for a deed or contract by deed to be enforced. So we have that in Conveyance of Land Use section, I think 77 to 77 of Property and Conveyancing Law, 1959 of the old Western Nigeria. I think some other state laws have also made it that when you are contracting or when you are conveying your land or landed property, you do it by deed. Also, gifts to charitable organizations and gifts to people can also be done by way of deed. Now, contract has to be in writing. That is one of the specifications of a contract. It has to be in writing. That's same section 77 of PCL can say that as well. By PCL, I mean Property and Conveyancing Law 1959. And then it has to be, indeed, it has to be signed. Now, by sealing, prior to now, sealing was mandatory, right? However, over time, we realized that it need not be a strong, it need not be a seal per se, but a red wafer can go. Your mark can also be seen as a seal. Now, in delivering should have ordinarily been when I take the deed signed and I'll give it to you, and then you take it. You have it has been delivered to you. You now have physical possession of it. However, nowadays the law has evolved in such a way that even if I have drafted the deed, you have executed it yourself or through an attorney, I have also executed mine. You need not take physical possession of it before I can say it has been delivered. Once it is the intention of the parties, once the parties have said, okay, we are done with this deal, then it is deemed by law that it has been delivered. Once by the intention of the parties, the transaction has been concluded, then it has been delivered. So it's important to know that physical possession of the document is not only what qualifies as a deed. At any point in time that from the intention of the parties, the transaction has set to be concluded and that the transaction has set to now be into effect. We can now give life into that transaction and into that document. It is deemed to have been delivered. We also have delivery by escrow. You could look at Jagede versus Citycon. I'm going to put the cases there. Awojubabu Light Industry is also there, and Chimunkwe is also there. It's also a good case in delivery. Now we have that because I said deed by escrow, delivery by escrow. Delivery by escrow comes into play whenever parties are they have concluded, but then the execution of the contract is subject to a condition. Let's say, for instance, I have said that I would convey my land to you. However, it is only pending when you complete the payment. You know, that is delivery in escrow. It's not yet completed. But once you completely pay me, it has been delivered. The deed has been delivered. The transaction takes effect. So once there is a conditional, when there's a condition that needs to be fulfilled before that deed comes into life, we call that delivery by escrow. And when before that condition is fulfilled, or before the time for that condition is fulfilled, a party cannot renege. Take for instance, if we said you should complete your payment, party A and party B has entered into or has executed a deed for conveying the land. Party A wants to convey his land or transfer his land from to B, and he says, you have to complete payment of this property in 6 months. And upon completion of the payment, the land has been transferred fully to you. So we are waiting from January to January, February, March, April, May, June to June, and then we're still in March. Yeah, we're in March right now. Party A cannot sell that land within that 6 months, even in March, April, May, up until the expiration of the 6 month period. So within those 6 months period, the the content of the deed still binds the parties. But upon the expiration of the time or the duration, the 6 months, and party B has not paid, party A can go on and transfer the property to someone else. So within that 6 months, we can call that contract, we can call that delivery in escrow. Now, so we are clear that formal contracts are also contracts that are by deed or under a seal. They can be enforced without consideration, and there need not be meeting of minds, between parties, because then when, take for instance, we have a gift, I want to gift someone my land. I need not come and tell you, do you agree to take the gift? I can just gift you the land, and then you can take it or you can choose not to take it. However, that deed is valid and can be executed by me and you. Most importantly, as well, the deed binds me to how to actually part with the property that I have already gifted to you. We have the Anya Fulego and Osaka. Yes, Anya Fulego and Osaka case. So I will also put that in the description box as well, or on the screen, depending on where it suits better. So deed contract by deed need not have consideration to be enforceable by law, and the parties need not also have a meeting of the mind. We go over to simple contracts. Simple contracts are contracts that are not by deed. They are in writing, or they can be oral or parole. If it's oral, it's called a parole contract. If it's not in oral, if it's not an oral contract, it's in writing. But they are not by deed. They are not under a seal. It's like your tenancy agreement. I don't think it has a seal of your landlord per se. It's just in writing. It has to be signed by parties, and then it has to be, for it to be valid, there should be consideration. When we say consideration, I don't think I explained that the other time, but when we say consideration, it means something that I'm going to part with. What am I going to part with? What am I going to lose for me to get that contract? Party A and party B. Let's say party A is a manufacturer of furniture, and party B is a hotel connoisseur. That is Party B is the owner of a hotel, and so there is a contract where it says that Party A is going to supply Party B certain number of shares and furniture and all of that, and Party B is going to pay. Now, the consideration for Party B, what Party A is going to part with, is going to lose, is going to have to pay, is his time and effort to make the furnitures in the specifications that Party B want. And what is Party B going to do? Is your guess is as good as mine. His money. So sometimes consideration need not be cash, but we're going to go into consideration properly when we go into elements of a valid contract. But for the purpose of this introduction, for a simple contract to be valid, there has to be consideration. It also has to be in writing, and it need not be under seal. These are the differences between a simple contract and a contract by deed. A contract by deed, I'm going to also have a table around or spell it out. A formal contract is by deed, need not have a consideration for it to be valid and enforceable by law, and as well as parties need not have an agreement of mind. But on the other side, the simple contract is not by deed. All right, it's not by deed, and then the parties need have to be in agreement. They have to be at addendum. They have to have one mind. The parties will have one mind for it to be valid, and then there has to be a consideration by both parties for that contract, for the simple contract to be valid. Classification of contract that we're going to look at today is the express contract or implied contract. Remember, we said there are different classifications of contract. We looked at classification by form, which is where we found the simple contract or the formal contract. Now we're going to look at express contract or implied contract. One can also classify these as by form or usage. Now, express contracts are those contracts where the terms and conditions and obligations of parties as well as their rights are clearly stated. Just as the word express means, we have said this is it and this is what it is. You know what you're going to do. It's in writing, it has been signed. You know that you are going to manufacture the furniture for my hotel. I know that I will pay you. In fact, the exact amount I'm going to pay has been written down. The exact number of furniture party A is going to produce for party B has been written down. Everything is clearly stated. That is an express contract. We have the implied contract. Again, as the name says, an implied contract is it's a type of contract where some of the terms will have to be construed, thought about, drawn from the conduct of the parties, from the business convention. What is obtainable in this business. What are the things that are obtainable in this business? That is how we're going to conclude that this is the term and condition that should guide party A and B. I'll give you an example. Let's say, for instance, I went to a shop to get a thing, and then the owner, sells it to me, and then I pay for it. There is this, even if I did not say anything, there is this implied term that what I'm buying is of good quality. And so if I go home and it's not working, I could return it and say CCC is not working, and then they are either refunding me or they would have an exchange. Now, except there is an express term either on their Instagram page, or they have told me we do not refund though, that kind of a thing. If not for that, it is expected that they either refund or they exchange the bad one for a good one, even though we did not write or sign any contract. It's implied by contract or by conduct of that business that whatever is in your shop is of good quality. Then we move on to, let's say it's by facts, by conduct. Let us imply the contract by conduct. Implied contract can come in a case of silence. Yes, when a person is silent on a thing, it could be deemed that you have agreed that term. Take for instance, during negotiation, when a person is silent on a thing, it can be deemed that you have agreed to that term. Take for instance, during negotiation, you have negotiated a certain amount, and then I have written to you or I have told you, and instead of you to respond to me to negotiate further, you keep quiet and allow me to supply you, and you take delivery of that thing. You cannot come back and tell me you did not agree to the money or to the amount. By your conduct, by your silence, by your receiving of the goods I have supplied to you, and probably even using it, you're expected to pay. So there are contracts that we can imply the terms and the conditions by conduct of the people, of the parties, or by convention, by acceptable convention and standard of doing business in a certain industry. The shipping company have their conventions that need not be in writing. The aviation have their conventions that need not be also in writing. And so if I need not sign, it is expected that this and this and this, these are the things that are that are implied in this contractual relationship. And so because of that, we have the express and the implied types or classification of contract. Another classification of contract that is worthy of note here today is the unilateral contracts and the bilateral contracts. Unilateral contract, just as the word says, it is usually a contract that is executed or that is enforceable against one party. There could be two parties, yeah, but it is the offeror. It is the offeror that is the person who is making a proposition that the law will enforce that contract against. Example, we have the whistleblowing policy. The federal government says for everyone who, the federal government of Nigeria though, sometime in the past says for everyone who exposes any corrupt practice by anyone is going to be paid, for example, 20 million naira. It has entered into a contract with the whole world or with the whole Nigeria, with a lot of people, not just one person. So I, on my part, I go ahead and expose the corrupt practice of a politician. The court is going to enforce that contract against the federal government because the federal government made the proposition, made the offer, which I accepted. I was under no obligation in the first place to do what I did. But once I have done it, the federal government must part with their own consideration. They must do that which they have asked to do. So there is usually the federal government did not meet me personally in my house and say you should do this. No, the federal government came up and said a thing, and then I said, okay, I will in my own part. So both of us we did not have a meeting of the mind, and I was under no obligation to do that which the federal government said. So in unilateral contract, it's usually a contract made to the whole world and not or to a lot of people and not just to one party. And parties do not really sit down on a round table to discuss the terms. It is just one party deciding on the terms, deciding on what they will pay, deciding on how they will pay those terms, those considerations, deciding on who they will pay it to, and then all I have to do is to align or not. We also have an example of back in the days we used to take Coca-Cola, or even till now, they will tell that the Coca-Cola bottle that the Coca-Cola company is running a promo where if you are able to have or to get a certain number of cocks with where if you're able to get a certain number of cocks with let's say a certain design, then you're going to be given a reward. And then they were saying this, they didn't have me in mind in particular. And then in my own space, I went ahead and gathered those cocks. It is now for the Coca-Cola company to perform their contract that they had entered with me, though not directly, but they entered it with me when they made that proposition. So in unilateral contract, it's usually one party deciding what the terms are, and the other party is under no obligation to perform. But once that party has performed or started to perform, in most cases, then the party making the offer, the offeror, is bound to perform or to do that which he says he would do or she would do. Then you find out more in reward cases. Like I used the whistleblowing policy of the federal government of Nigeria at the time. Then we have companies who run promos. They say do this and I will do that. We have reward systems. There is a notable case here, Kali versus Kabulik's book. I'm going to have another video where I will explain the facts of this case as well as the rulings of the court or the holdings of the court in this case. Because this court is very, very instructive in contract, especially in the introductory part of contract. Then we are going now to bilateral contract. Just as the name says, there are two parties. There are two contracting parties fully aware of the contract and the identities of the parties. Party A knows he or she is entering into a contract with party B, and they both sit down and agree on the terms and say, I will perform this and then you will perform this. Whatever I'm going to do, I know. Whatever you're going to do, you know. And we execute or sign that contract. That is bilateral. Parties determining what they are going to perform together in one mind at addendum.